YouTube, we are back today with another Homestead questions video. This past week we got a more personal question from a viewer of ours, and they asked us, is homesteading worth it? Now, if you mean worth it in terms of like that's a very broad term, in terms of like financially, emotionally, physically, spiritually, however you want to put that. So we just thought that we'd take a second to answer that question in the best way that we can, but from our personal perspective and from our personal opinions. So for us, I would say in our opinion and for our specific lifestyle, homesteading is worth it.
Yes.
There's pros and cons to living this sort of lifestyle, particularly as we choose to live it in a modern day homesteading off-grid sort of situation. So certain pros, you are more free to do as you wish. There's no time clock. We don't have a boss that's knocking on the door at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. that's or calling the cell phone and, hey, where are you? So it's a much more free sort of lifestyle, but that comes with great responsibility. There is the saying, with great power comes great responsibility. If you're going to live this sort of lifestyle, or any sort of homesteading lifestyle, if you are your own systems, you have to be self-directed and self-driven. Now, we view that as a pro. Other people would view that as a con. We view that as something that's positive because it always keeps us learning and responsible for ourselves and responsible for our own things. So that's something to take into account, but we view that as a positive thing. Something else that's a positive, like I mentioned just now, that we are our own systems, so we don't have to necessarily be reliant upon other things outside of our own selves. We view that as a pro because we are capable of taking care of ourselves. Other people would potentially view that as a con because they've got a bit of a different mindset. So that's another plus that we have. In terms of cons, I think
it's a consistent lifestyle. It's even on your days off, it's not a day off.
Yeah.
Animals still need to eat, drink twice a day, if not more during the summers, and maybe even more for the water in the winter when it freezes. The house always needs maintaining, work to be done, for heating, for repairs that need to be done on it, or maintenance for like the solar systems. There's certain things that don't require a lot of work, just time involved to do it.
So some people would view that as a con because it means that you are constantly having to be awake and aware of what's going on.
Yeah, like there's no sleeping until 9-10 o'clock for us because
when was the last time that
animals
happened?
need to be done by 7-8 o'clock in the latest in the morning. Yeah. So and same thing with in the evenings. Like sometimes in the evenings, we'll trade off where if I had a hard day that day and I'm going to bed at 7 o'clock in the evening, and the animals still need to be put away, Kimberly can take that on, but that would be a con. Also, repairs. If repairs need to be done, there is no maintenance person around. You have to either do it yourself, MacGyver it till you can find someone that can do it yourself, or just leave it. Yeah.
Yeah. Something else to consider too, when you live a homesteading or an off-grid lifestyle, when you're considering whether it's worth it or not, is that living this sort of lifestyle, like, it's been a huge adjustment for me in particular, because I grew up in the city and knew absolutely nothing moving out here. And it's been 15 months now. It's been about 15 months. I've learned a lot, but there still is a lot to learn. It is a consistent learning experience. You will have that anywhere in life. Life is always supposed to be a learning experience. You're always supposed to be growing and learning. But when you're talking about homesteading, there's no such thing as, oh, well, I'm just going to sit and not improve myself. I'm just going to sit and not improve my skills. I'm just going to sit and not do this. That's a very unrealistic way of living when you're homesteading. And that's something that you could get away with in the city, with just being stagnant in terms of your own personal growth and learning. not so when you're homesteading, and not so when you're living off grid. So that's something to take into consideration. We definitely see that as a positive side because we like personal growth and being challenged. Other people may not. So that's a factor to consider when you are thinking if homesteading is worth it or not.
To wrap it all into one sentence, basically, you're gonna get out what you put in. So if you don't do the work yourself, you're not one of those self-driven people, you are not physically active, you like to lay around all day, you're not going to get much accomplished in around the property, because anything that you want accomplished in around a property has to be done under your own horsepower. Yeah.
Yes.
So is it worth it? I would say yes, not only because it keeps our mental clarity better, we're not exposed to all of the things that you would be in the city, but we also now have offset a lot of our costs due to the fact that we do have our own systems in place with food, water, electricity. These systems can be improved upon. They're not set in stone, set and done. We're expanding our gardens again this year, maybe even again next year. It all depends on how things happen. We can expand our solar, add wind. There's many things. It's never going to be completed.
Said and done. Okay, this project is finally finished.
You might have a homestead where you think it's perfect, but there's always going to be like, oh, I can do this better, I can do that better, I can do this. But it's something that I find that I've never got in a city lifestyle, is that gratitude from accomplishing things yourself. Because in the city, typically you're either got someone that you have to please, either your family, your friends, your boss, or some sort of social acceptance. Where here, there's no one to impress. It's all done under your own horsepower, and you can see everything flourish under your own watch.
Yes. Yeah. That you did mention the cost too. The cost of homesteading is something that is a pro in the long run, because it definitely takes a little bit to get set up, and depending on what your version is and how many animals you want to have, etc. How many things you're going to need to set up, you do still have to have money to run a homestead. But once you're set up and you have a lot of your systems in place, in the long run, it costs you much less than it would if you were living in a city lifestyle.
Especially with the cost of electricity, groceries,
electricity,
your
heat,
electricity,
water,
all that stuff. Exactly.
Pretty much everything.
As you guys have seen in my other rant videos. So
yeah. So that's a long-term pro, but something else to consider. So I think that's it. I hope this answers the question. Is homesteading worth it? Yes, with a little asterisk on it with a disclaimer, because it takes a certain type of person to want to be a homesteader and to want to be reliable for themselves rather than on another system or on someone else.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you on the next one.